This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everyone. Very good evening to all of you. Welcome to BA class. This is our week 2 of BA class. We are in our second week of BA class. So let's get started. Let's have a quick recap of what we studied in our last week's class. Alright. So in our last week's class, we studied about requirement elicitation. So what is a requirement elicitation? Requirement elicitation is a practice of researching and discovering whether the requirements for a system. So we are there to identify the various requirements for the system which we are trying to build. So as a part of elicitation, we gather the requirements and we document them, we analyze them, and finally share it up with your technology team so as they can start implementing the solution. So the prerequisites of requirement elicitation is to have a complete understanding of the business need. Why is that we are gathering the requirements? For what reason are we gathering the requirements? So that need or the purpose would be serving based on the business case. So we as a BA, we prepare our business case. So we have a good understanding for what is the scope of this project, for what need we are building this project. And then we also need stakeholders. Stakeholders are anyone who is impacted because of the project, positively or negatively. So we need to have the stakeholders available for the requirement gathering meetings. So we prepare a stakeholder analysis so as we can identify what is the plan or what is the engagement, how you can engage those different kinds of stakeholders. So these will be the two prerequisites before we enter the requirement elicitation. And then we studied the various different methods of requirement elicitation like brainstorming, document analysis, focus group, interface analysis, interviews, observation, process modeling, prototyping, requirement workshops, survey, reverse engineering. So these are the various elicitation techniques which are used based on the different kinds of the project. So this is what we studied in our last week's class. So any questions from anyone from last week? Okay. So if there are no questions, so we'll continue with today's session. So today we'll also talk about one more elicitation technique, which is called as JAD. So before we get inside that, let's see some examples of prototypes. In our last week's class, we studied about different prototypes, right? So prototyping is one technique wherein you are displaying in terms of a visual page, or you can draw a flow chart, you can draw something on a whiteboard, or you can use a paper and a pen and draw and describe the business requirement, what is that you're gathering and what is the purpose of gathering the business requirement. So by looking at the prototype, the stakeholders, whoever are there in the requirement elicitation meeting, would have a good understanding of what are the various steps involved, how does the page look like, so as they could give you more and clear specified requirements. So this is one example of a prototype wherein you can see this prototype is a simple one which shows you various modules available and how they interact with one another. So a prototype could be as simple as this. So this is one example of a prototype wherein you're logging in home page and you have various modules available inside your application, like a search, a find, a deals, a new arrivals, a category, bestsellers, and based on it, this will describe you, okay, hey, there are so many different modules for the application, whatever you're building. So this is one example. There's one more example of a prototype wherein you're describing different modules like, okay, registration. This is for a healthcare wherein you have a registration and a discharge. How does a registration form look like? How does a login happen? What does the various modules? What are the various levels of internal details against each module? Okay, so this is how we can see. So in here, it's one more prototype wherein you're describing this is how a flow of different events would be there. So I'll share you guys these different prototypes. So that gives you some good understanding. This is how a layout could be on a particular mobile or on a web page, and various modules inside that page can be described. Okay, so that's about how a prototype would look like. And as a BA, we can draw some prototypes. Just why are we doing this? Just will aid in the requirement gathering meetings. Okay, let's talk about JAD. So JAD is also a requirement elicitation. What is a requirement elicitation? We studied in the last week, wherein you are gathering the requirements, talking to the various stakeholders and gathering. So JAD is so different. Why is JAD different than the other requirement elicitation techniques? This is the only elicitation technique wherein you are not only gathering the requirements, you are extending it further into the design and development of the application. JAD, the full form is Joint Application Development, wherein involves the client and end user in the design and the development through the successive collaborative workshops. We already studied what is a workshop. Workshop is a gathering wherein you have all of your stakeholders available. In addition to the existing stakeholders, you'll also involve your technology guys, your design architects, your SMEs, and your development guys. Why? Because you're also proceeding from one step of requirement gathering to the design and documentation as well. So in this purpose of a JAD is to bring the IT and the business community. So basically, you're also involving not gathering the requirements, you're also trying to give the business team a feel of how the design would be and how the development would be. So JAD is an important technique for iterative development. Okay, so JAD, Joint Application Development, wherein you are having, see, all the requirement gathering techniques only involves the business team, or you will involve some of the technology guys to be there as a part of requirement elicitation. But only in the JAD technique, you are going to design of the solution as well, and you're also going to the development of the solution. Do remember, we are not developing the whole application. Maybe you're not designing the complete 100% of the application in the JAD session sitting there. But yes, you will have a good understanding of how this design would be. You will discuss this with your business team, and business team, if they have some comments, they could give you the comments, and based upon it, you are coming to a consensus on your design and development framework. So who all would be there in a JAD meeting? So JAD facilitator who facilitates the meeting process, a documenter who captures the notes, a business expert or end user representative who will tell us the business need, an executive sponsorer who is the main guy who is sponsoring, who can take decisions, a project manager who runs a project, a business analyst, a technical team who does the design and the development aspect, some special interest groups like a security, legal, and database admin. If your solution recommends or demands the importance of a security and the legal aspect, you can involve those groups. And observers, somebody who's sitting there just to listen and watch, maybe who are learners or who are freshers who are trying to understand. So JAD is a big forum, okay? So you need all of these guys available and everybody is there in a JAD. The reason being, you're not only focusing on the requirement elicitation of gathering the requirements, you're also more or less completing the design. You're more or less got a standard idea about how the development will be done. So by end of this JAD session, you are very close to your development and finally get it tested and finally get it deployed into production. Okay, so that's the reason JAD is popular. However, every organization follows a different kind of a technique, what they would try to go for. See, few organization culture is to go for a JAD, like the organization which I worked on earlier. So there, every project they go with a JAD. The reason being, the projects are so critical, they want the business team also to be involved in the design. See, why are we involving the business in the design and development? Because those business guys has a very good understanding of the technology aspects too, and they wanted to weigh in the decision on those as well. Not every business team would involve in a development. They would just tell you, okay, this is what I need to be developed. But in few organizations, the business team are so involved and they are also technical, wherein they would like to have the decisions made on the design and the development aspects. So the layout will be something like this. You have all the users sitting in here, the IT guys sitting at the back. You have a projector wherein you are projecting the things, trying to gather the various things. You have a scribe who documents everything, who does the recordings and so on. You have a whiteboard wherein you can discuss some ideas and generation and evaluation. So basically in a JAD, the whole workshop meeting, right? So you will usually have a member of 8 to 12. That's a recommended approach. So when can you apply this? When is it needed? The very important thing, as I said, when the business team wants to involve in the design and development. Why? Because the business team are also very technical and they understand the technology part. They would like to see the design. It's a new solution, not a standard solution of a typical problem. Analysts forecast the number of ideas generated are so many, so it is better to have everybody available. Organization workflow permits the absence of key personnel. See, you're in a JAD the whole day or 1 day, 2 days, depending on how big is the project, the organization has to permit the absence of the key personnel, right? Because you're just blocked the whole 2 days or 3 days in a JAD session, you might not get enough time to do your regular piece of work. So your organization permits that kind of a thing. And do remember, you will not be called into a JAD, like for everybody will not be called into a JAD. You have to be knowledgeable enough wherein you're contributing to the requirements, to the design and the development aspect. So what are the common activities? You first understand what is the current situation, identify the current problems, analyze their causes, determining the benefits, capturing the requirements of the business room. Now we understand the current process, how we can improve or how we can solve the problem is where you're gathering the requirements. So the qualities of a JAD participant. Who can be a JAD participant? An understanding of the current and future needs. He has to understand a business knowledge, very good business knowledge, understand what is the current situation, what is that we want it in the future, and what is the commitment, ability to make some decisions, ability to function without rank, and so on. Right? You don't want somebody like, and you have a senior manager, you should not be like, okay, there is a senior manager, I should not voice out my opinion. No. Right? If you have your requirement which you think is not valid, you can definitely. You want every participant of a JAD function without a rank. Understanding the opportunities of available using automation. So every technique has some benefits. So what are the benefits? It saves time over one-on-one interviews. It's a faster development. Why? Because you're more or less at the end of the JAD sessions, you're more or less towards the you have a good framework about what you're trying to develop. So you will have less clarifications with the business guys. As a technology team, we would have less clarifications. The reason being the business team is available in your session and they are available at your disposal for any clarifications. Improved end product. Why? Because poor requirements obviously create a risk of overall quality. Now that you are there and the whole team is available, so it improves the end product. So there are some drawbacks. The commitment, that's a very important part because JAD happens for a day or 2 days or 4 days or so. It's a big block of time. If preparation is inadequate, there is no point, right? Like, I mean, I have to be very well prepared for a JAD. I will not be called into a JAD meeting unless and until it is very important, right? Your manager thinks like, okay, hey, Shri can contribute to this meeting, then only we will include her. Organizational skills and culture might not be sufficiently developed to enable a concerned effort required to be productive in a JAD. See, if few organizations might think, okay, hey, JAD is not suitable for my particular kind of an organization based on the kind of a skill set required, then that's one of the drawback, right? Because you need the folks to be available to contribute. See, if I'm a startup company, I might not have enough skills to get into a JAD session at this point in time. Because I'm just starting up. I'm a startup company. I don't have that much of skills acquired already. So we are all working together. So these are some of the things about a JAD, which is a very important technique, and it has been followed in various organizations. Okay, so let's see if I have any more information in my running notes. So what is a JAD? You can look for the Wikipedia. So JAD is a process used in the life cycle of dynamic system development method to collect the business requirements while developing the new information system for a company. You are involving in a JAD process. Why? Because you're trying to develop something new. You're trying to develop something creative, which is different from others. Use it primarily when the solution is not so regular, based on the organization culture. So what are the questions as a BA we need to pose in a JAD? Let's see if this meeting links. See, I'm also a participant in JAD, so this is not working. Right? What questions do I ask in an elicitation? Okay, what questions do I ask? So go through this video. So this is a good one. You can, it's not a huge one. You can just go through it as a part of your homework. Just go through that video. So it gives you some good information. So 5 questions definitely we can ask, right? Like you can put up a questionnaire. What is that? See, if somebody tells you, one of the stakeholder is telling you, hey Shri, you as a BA, can you make a note like, okay, we want to use this particular feature in the mobile application. Let's say, for example, let's open our running class notes. Say there is a project, like say our project is say Walmart mobile app. That's the project we are working on. Okay, say one of the requirement that comes up is, say for example, requirement number 12. Okay, customer can utilize rewards collected for shopping. Say for every rewards what they collect while shopping, they could utilize those rewards whatever they collected for shopping, for further shopping, for future shopping they could use it. So say this is your requirement given. So now you might pose some questions. Say this requirement is being told by one of your stakeholder, is been given by one of your stakeholder. You made a note of it. Then you will ask, how will we use this feature? How do you want the rewards to be collected? Okay. What is the criteria to collect the rewards? See, you want rewards to be collected maybe only on electronics, maybe not on groceries, maybe on electronics, or you wanted to collect on groceries but not on electronics. So what is the criteria? And once they collected the rewards, where does it show? There will be so many questions arising, right? What is the criteria to collect the rewards? Okay, is it for every shopping done, or only on specific categories of shopping you wanted to collect the rewards? And what is it like? Okay, for every $1 spent, how many rewards? Like, okay, 10 cents or 1 cent for every $1. Something like that, right? You need a criteria on how the rewards would be collected and where these rewards show up. Where can the customer see how many rewards that have been collected so far? What is the minimum to redeem the rewards? Redeeming rewards. How can they redeem the rewards? What is the criteria to redeem the rewards? Okay, only rewards if accumulated are more than 100, then only they can reward or something like that, right? So for every criteria, for one requirement, you will pose so many questions as a BA. You need to think like, okay, how will it show up? On what screen does it show up? Will the reward points will be updated immediately or not updated immediately? See, when we do some shopping, we don't see the reward points updated immediately. We notice that, right? So is there a cycle based on which the reward points update? Rewards updates, or like is there like, okay, it gets updated every 1 week or after 1 day, or what is the frequency when they get updated, right? So there will be so many questions. How this feature will be known? How does it meet the business need? You have how questions, you have where questions, you have when questions, who, what, and so on. So you can pose these questions. These questions will give you some good understanding on what all the things as a BA I have to be contributing to the requirement elicitation. See, it is not like as a BA we called up the meeting, we'll make note of every requirement given by the stakeholder. Yes, you have to make note of every requirement given by the stakeholder, but however, you need to pose some questions because you need to always keep in mind how these will be implemented in a mobile app, how these will be implemented in a solution we are building. Okay, that's very important. 10 ways to discover the problem. So remove this link, it's not working. If we did this, what would happen? So these are some of the sample questions given, which you can go through these website links. These have some good information. So that's about the requirement elicitation, guys. So I'll pause for a minute. Let me know if you guys have any questions. All right, cool. So let's move on to our next topic, which is estimation. See, estimation is very important, right? So what is an estimation? Estimation will give you some good understanding about how much is the quantity of work, what is the quantum of work we need to, excuse me. So what do we do an estimation for? We estimate, the reason being we wanted to know what is the quantum of work and how much time it will take to achieve that work and what are the skill set required to achieve. So you would have various factors. See, now where we are, we have the project business case given, and now we got an approval on the business case. So we started on with the requirement elicitation process. So now when the project gets kicked off, there is a project manager assigned to that project who is responsible to ensure the project goes smooth. Everybody in the team works together. There is a BA guy who works along with the project. There is a development team who works. There are architects, the database administrator guys. There are testers. There are business team who will be, or the product owners, the application owners. Everybody in the project has to work together to deliver this project. Now, this project manager cannot just run the project, start right away into the project. He need to have a proper estimate how much time it will take to deliver this project, because he is ultimately responsible to the sponsorer or the business guys who gives us the dollar amount, right? So this project manager asks for the estimates from the different team. They might ask the BA also, hey BA, how much time would you take for this particular project to get the requirements, to analyze the requirement, do the acceptance testing. He might ask the same thing for a development team, an architect team, your testing team, and so on. So estimation is basically to get a overall time frame on how much time it takes, how much dollar amount it takes, what is the quantum of work, and what is the skill set required. See, this particular project might require an automation tester, or a BA guy might say, okay, hey, this is a complex requirement elicitation. We need a JAD available, and for that, I need your help to involve all the business guys to be there. Right, so there will be a lot of coordination. Maybe BA guy might say, I have to understand this. I may have to talk to some domain experts or to the subject matter experts to understand the project. So this might happen that way. So overall, so you might see there are various factors that can contribute to the estimation. So now let's see what are the various popularly used estimation techniques. What is an estimation? Estimation is the process of finding an estimate and giving a value. So which is for usable purpose if the input may be incomplete, uncertain, or unstable. So just to know what is the quantum of work. So effort estimation, you are estimating in terms of an effort, is answering the two basic questions about the BA. What will be done, how much effort it will take. So BA might say, okay, hey, for this project, I have to do the requirement elicitation, then I have to do the analysis, I have to create use cases, I have to create user story, I have to draw some models, I have to create some wireframes, and so on. So BA would list down all the tasks and write it down how much effort it would take. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's write down what are the various tasks. So we understand the world of BA so far, right? We have been attending the classes. You guys have been attending the classes for the 1 week. So what are the various tasks the BA might do? What do you guys think? What are the various BA tasks? Anyone? We as a BA, what are the things we do? We studied so many things from the past 1 week, various activities the BA guy will do, right? Can you guys list it down? Anyone? Okay. Understanding the business needs. Okay. Go through the documentation. How do you understand? You can talk to the folks, or you can go through available help or documentation, talk to SMEs or domain experts. Yeah, requirement elicitation or gathering. That's correct. Before the gathering, what is the things we do? Before we get into the gathering part, what are the things we need to do as a BA? Business case, right, guys? Business case. Yeah, project scoping falls under your business case. Stakeholder analysis. It's very important. We studied all of these, right? We need to understand who are all the stakeholders, to whom all I need to go and talk to for elicitation. For gathering the requirements, how do I know whom all I need to talk to? Until and unless I don't do the stakeholder analysis, it will not. Yes, documentation. So various kinds of documents we produce. So BRD is one thing. We'll add to this because so far we didn't study all of it. Till here is what we studied so far, right? Understanding the needs, preparing a business case, doing the stakeholder analysis. In that, you first have to identify your stakeholders and then analyze them, map them, or put up in a matrix so as you can find out ways how you can engage. and then you start doing your requirement elicitation. Right? So these are the various tasks. So now that I know various tasks, what I do, then we also have like so many other things, documentation, we create some models. We then do the acceptance testing, because that's one of the tasks for a BA, has to do the acceptance testing. BA has to clarify clarifications to the business team, to the technology team. Some tester might have a question, some developer might have a question, an architect might have some discussions, business guys might have some clarification, they're not happy. Has to do the requirement management, change management. If some changes are coming, how do I manage it? What else the BA guy will do? Yeah, maybe this much so far, right? So as we understand more and more, we can keep add on to this. So now what I did, I break down my work. What is the work breakdown structure? What is the work breakdown structure? Work breakdown structure is basically there is a total piece of work. And now that I have to do the requirement gathering for the complete project. If you think the project is Walmart mobile app, I have so many activities I have to do. But for the Walmart mobile app itself is a so huge thing. So much of functionality is there on Walmart mobile app. I can follow the work breakdown structure. I will list down all the modules in that, like what I can do. Now for coming to the project of Walmart mobile app. So what are the various modules? Okay, new user registration. They have to register for a new user. Login is one functionality, log out. Okay, place order, cancel order, so on. So you keep on adding all your main critical functionality. For each of the functionality, I have to perform some of these tasks. I have to document, model, acceptance testing, how much time it could take. Maybe this might take 8 hours. You cannot just go with a ballpark number, right? So this is where you are estimating. You're breaking down your total piece of work and estimating the effort for each task. So work breakdown structure is followed in various terminologies, not just an estimation or not just in your documentation. You can follow the work breakdown structure in your project management, in your requirement management. You're breaking down your total piece of work and managing it well. Okay. So your project manager might follow a work breakdown structure. So as it is easy for me to estimate, if I have to estimate the whole Walmart mobile app, maybe I will say 100 hours. 100 hours is a huge thing, or maybe 1000 hours for the BA work. So how can I justify every piece of estimation I am giving? See, as a BA, we need to justify every piece of work, whatever has been documented or whatever has been discussed, right? So I need to have a common proof. Like I can say this is taking this much of time, this is taking this much of time. It sums up to 100 hours. So this is the BA hours. And the project manager collects from the BA, the development team, task and testing team, and adds some buffer and finally gives an estimation for the project, complete project. So some of the popularly used techniques. So how can I go with the numbers? I can go with a 3-point estimation. What does a 3-point estimation tells you? 3-point estimation basically is you take 3 different types of estimate. A best case estimate, most likely estimate, and a worst case estimate. And then apply a formula. This is a standard formula. So I will say, okay, for a new user registration, best case is 8. Best case is 8. Most likely is 12. Worst case estimate is 16. And then you apply it in the formula A plus 4M plus B by 6, your total estimate comes. In the same manner, you can write down a task for the use cases. I have to write use cases. I have to document. I have to write user stories. Then for every task, you can add the estimation. You can estimate at the project level. If it is easier for you to estimate at a module level, you can do that estimate. You can estimate at the task level like this. List down all your tasks as minute as possible. It can come up to 20 different tasks we might be doing. And then add the estimation for each and every task. So this is your 3-point estimation. Now every estimate, as I said, has to be validated. Right? It has to be your manager will review it and will approve it. He might question you with the estimate is too high, it is not in line or not in line with what the project manager has thought as the target, but now it is, so he might question you, he might call you for a discussion and discuss on it. Some of the other estimation techniques use the historical data from the projects. Say this is popularly used technique. What is your historical data? If I did a similar project earlier, okay, the organization has worked on Walmart mobile app earlier and it took them like 1,000 hours. Now it might take another 1,000 so, or it could be little low or little high. You're using the historical data and then doing your estimation. The other technique is the Delphi one. What is the Delphi? You take the help from your experts. Maybe Shri is new in the BA activity. She never did it. So she will go to the senior BAs or the manager to help her out for the first time. You're taking the expert knowledge and then estimating. Or you use your own expert judgment. So I know this is what it could take, so I'll go with my rough estimate. See, all of these these three estimations are all approximates, right? Because you're not following a specific method. You're just taking a historical data and estimating, or you're talking to the experts and estimating, or you're taking up with your own guts or your own expert judgment and estimating. Or you can go with a software size based approach. So what is a software size? See, what happens is your project manager will get the total size. Size can be in various ways. The simplest way is lines of code, LOC. LOC stands for lines of code. If this particular Walmart mobile app has like, okay, 10,000 lines of code that has to be modified or created. Code is actual coding done by your development time. If this project size is in the lines of code, the BA can go with the percentage of it. Development time would give like say 1,000 hours. So BA can go like, okay, 15% of the development work, or you can say 25% of the development work will be the BA work or something like that. So he can go on a size base. Size could be in various ways, LOC, or you can go with the modules, you can go with the functions, number of functions you're developing, features you're developing. If you have total number of use cases you already created for this. See, Walmart mobile app is not the brand new thing you're delivering. It is already there. You're just redesigning it to better it up, right? Like, so you already know like there are 500 use cases. So I'll take a percentage out of it. Or I can go with some 15%, 25% of the functions. Walmart mobile app, you can do like almost 200 functions using it. So you'll take a percentage of it. The software size based approach is basically you're calculating the size of the system available and converting it into the software size to the BA effort. You can always add a buffer time. Some of the best practices. See, when I give an estimate, I should not just think, okay, if I give some minimum estimate, everybody will be happy with me. Because Shri is able to do this whole BA work in just 100 hours. See, that's one thing you wanted to impress everyone. But it is me who has to work towards so many tasks. So I should not just try to see like, okay, if I stick to the original estimate, I always think like add a buffer time. Maybe a 10% of the buffer time you can add, or 15%. You estimated 200, give the number of hours as 10% added on top of it, maybe 110 hours. Or give it as 120 hours because 20 hours you added as a buffer because unpredictable things can happen. Some of the stakeholders might not be available to give you an approval, or you cannot clarify with your technical guys, or the change management did not go through, or acceptance testing is taking so much of time. Account resource planning. See, when I'm estimating, I always have to consider the resources who would be working in the project. That's very important, right? Like, because resources play a key role. If somebody is not available, somebody going on a long vacation, what would happen? Use the past experience. This is one of the best thing, right? Because see, if I work for the first time in a project, maybe it will be little tough. After 2 or 3 projects, I would know how it would be, right? I would always use my past experience. I know this guy is always like this, or this guy goes in this method very well, so I'll stick to that. I use my past experience as a reference point. Then you always have to stick to your estimate. See, this is what you estimated, and everybody expects you to stick to that estimate. See, if you go up little bit up, you have to be justifying so many guys. See, once a while you have to go up. The reason being, there are various reasons why everything could not be done in 100 hours. Maybe you took 130 hours. Why 30 hours more? It's a huge thing. So you have to discuss, you have to talk to your PM, make sure he understands it, re-estimates, and then negotiate. Okay. Usually, whatever estimate you give for, you have to stick. So these are some of the estimation, popularly used estimation techniques. Brainstorming is one more. Bottom-up estimation, top-down estimation. Your bottom-up is you break it down everything, all the total functions in your system, and you try to estimate from bottom-up. See, you have a say, for example, requirement elicitation is one task. Okay, for that I have to estimate how much time it takes. For the requirement elicitation, first I have to understand the business need, then do the stakeholder analysis. I have to identify the stakeholders to do the stakeholder analysis. So for you break it down into multiple tasks, and you estimate at the minute level, and you pump it up to the top. That's your top down. In a similar manner, bottom up estimation. You start from the bottom and you go on to the top. Okay, so you can follow your bottom up estimation or your top down estimation. You're breaking down, basically you're following a work breakdown structure, and you start at the minute task and then you pump it up to the top, or you take up the top estimate as requirement elicitation takes 20 hours and you break the 20 hours into multiple tasks. Okay, business case takes 2 hours, stakeholder analysis 1 hour, and interviews 2 hours, and so on. You break it. Either you follow a top-down approach or a bottom-up. That's your estimation. So I'll pause for a minute. Let me know if you guys have any questions on estimation. All right. So now we move on to our next task, which is requirement analysis. So what are the various steps we followed? First, we have let's start with a very basic thing. There is a goal for an organization or a problem the organization is facing or an opportunity, wherein we understood that and we prepared a business case. We presented that business case to the stakeholder teams, and we are waiting on the approval. At the same time, I do the stakeholder analysis, I identify my stakeholders and do the analysis of each of the stakeholders, how to engage them. And then the project got an approval. Project kickoff happens. And we also do a requirement kickoff. We take the calendar time for all the stakeholders and we block it for my requirement elicitation. We get into the requirement elicitation. So as a part of elicitation, you can follow interviews, a workshop, a prototyping, a JAD, and so on. You start getting the requirements. So as you are getting the requirements, you do the analysis of the requirements. So what is an analysis? What is a requirement analysis? It is a task that go in determining the needs and conditions of the altered product, taking into configuration account the possibility of conflicting requirements, analyzing, documenting, validating, and managing. See, as a part of requirement elicitation, you gathered so much of requirements. Now you come back and sit together, analyze those requirements. Are they in line with the business need? Are there some conflicting? When you document, when you validate these requirements, you identify, okay, hey, this is not a valid one. This is conflicting. This is a scope creep requirement and so on. So analysis is a very important aspect. You now, as a part of analysis, you break down the requirements into different models. Okay, so let's study what is a requirement analysis. It is a very important task. See, gathering requirements is one thing. Now that I gathered, I have to analyze and document it. So analysis is very important. Every requirement should be documented, actionable, measurable, testable, traceable. Business needs and defined at a sufficient detailed level. So every requirement we have to document, we have to measure, right? See, if there is a requirement, I need to know how much time it will take to implement that requirement. That's your measure. Or how can I measure this requirement is giving the fruits? Every requirement we need to test. Every requirement we need to know from there what is the credible source from which we got it. It's your requirement analysis. It's a process of defining the expectations of the user for an application that is to be built or to be modified. Let's open a requirement analysis. So what is the requirement analysis? It is specifying the software operational characteristics, indicates software interface with other systems, establishes the constraints that software might meet. See, when you gather the requirements, what happens? The requirements would be given in the business term, right? You might get a business requirement, something like this, right? Like this requirement, which we talked about in the top. So this is your requirement. Requirement given by the business guy says customers can utilize the rewards collected for shopping. Now you need to break down these requirements as a part of analysis into software operational characteristics. How does it operate on a system software? If I open that particular, if I have to implement that requirement in a mobile app, when I open a mobile app, how can I access this? How can this be implemented? You are now breaking down into software requirements. Okay, so you can say there will be a rewards section. Okay, so you, as a part of analysis, you're detailing out in your software characteristics, or software requirements, or you can say functional requirements, how it does function. So the same requirement could be broken down into, okay, my rewards will show the rewards collected by customer on click of my rewards, or on accessing or on opening my rewards. History of rewards collected, redeem would be shown. So now you're breaking down and so on, right? You break down this business requirement into functional software requirements. And this rewards show on top right corner on add item to cart, or on checkout pages, or on, maybe not on which all pages you wanted it to show. Maybe on a place order page also you would like to show. And now there are you're now mentioning in terms of software, how does it function? So this is how you're analyzing. This is an example like how you analyze your requirements, software characteristics, and how it interfaces with other systems. If there are some interfaces for this to another, how does it interface? What are the constraints? So you are expressing how what is to be built. Never you will go into how to be built. How is to be built is to be taken care by the design and the development team. You are also detecting and resolving any conflicts if there are available. See, there could be one conflict to another. See, there could be one requirement customer can utilize for shopping. There could be one more requirement which can say, okay, requirement number 13, okay, rewards collected can be utilized on travel. So this requirement is conflicting with this requirement. This requirement is given by one guy and this requirement is given by one guy. At that time, you didn't realize the conflict, but now while you are analyzing the requirements, you understood there is a conflict. So you would try to detect and resolve the conflicts, go back to the stakeholder and say, what is that we wanted to do? What are the boundaries? See, everything you cannot achieve within a software. There are some things which are manual. So what are the boundaries of the software and how do you elaborate these requirements? Now that I'm breaking down into these many requirements, see, when you go back to the business guys and say, hey, you given me this business requirement, I broken down into so many functionality requirements, they might not clearly understand each and everything what you're talking about. What does this my reward section, where does it show up? Or how does it work? What are the various functions inside of my reward? So you're now elaborating the requirements. To elaborate the requirement, to give a visual feel, you can build some models. You build the models to depict the user scenarios, the activities involved, the classes, the relationships. You can draw models for various things to visually represent. In a simple term, what is a model? The same requirement, I can write it down in a big paragraph or I can just show it up in a model so as everybody, the stakeholders, understand the functionality, the activities involved. So as a part of requirement analysis, we do the requirement modeling. What are the models? Models are used to gather the requirements. If you guys remember, as a part of elicitation too, we do the process modeling, right? We use the models even during the analysis. Models are used to discover and clarify the functionality and data requirements. So while I'm drawing the models, I'm also trying to explain how is the data flowing from one to another. How does the control flow from one to another? See, when the rewards has to be collected for shopping, you are moving from one section to another section. If the rewards have to be used for a travel, what is the travel site? Maybe an Orbitz or an Expedia. How does the rewards transfer from Walmart mobile app to the Orbitz website? So you're moving, right? You're progressing from the requirement. You're elaborating the requirements much further. You're giving in terms of software characteristics. So models will help you to clarify that. See, the business guys would like to see or understand how does the rewards collected will be utilized in a travel. Right? They might want to see whether this travel could be a car booking, a cab booking, or this travel could be a hotel booking or a flight reservation. How does it convert? How does it travels? Right? So you wanted to see the elaboration, the visual feel. That's what is achieved using modeling. Some of the rules of thumb, don't go into the details. See, models you're trying to do, you give a level of abstraction. You don't need to talk about 100 different steps. Talk about the critical ones. Each element of the requirement model should be added to the overall understanding of your software. Be certain that the requirement model provides value to all the stakeholders. Keep the model as simple as possible. You don't need to create two additional diagrams, two big diagrams. You don't need to bog down into too much of details in the model. While implementation, yes, you have to do that. In the depicting a model, you don't need to go too detailed until and unless it's a very critical feature you wanted to explain. Excuse me. So now, what are the various models that are available? And what are the various models we as a BA, we are involved and have to create? The models we are a BA and are involved and responsible are the scenario based model. This is a very big one. This is an important one. We have to be creating the scenario-based models like use cases and user stories. The other important one is flow models like DFDs, data flow diagrams, activity diagrams. So these are very low in priority. These are not at all in priority. The reason being, even these are very technical. These two are very technical. We as a BA, we don't need to be creating these models. However, behavioral models are very low in priority. You can try to understand what it is there. But these are the very important ones. Okay. Scenario-based models, use cases and user stories, flow-based models, DFDs and data models. We studied while we were understanding the requirement elicitation, some model notations. Guys, anyone remember? What are the various modeling notations we follow? The popularly used ones are UML and BPML. With a UML model, UML is a language used to create various different these of any of these models you can create using UML. If your organization is not following UML, they are following BPMN. So BPMN has a specific method. It's a business process. You're just defining a business process. You follow specific notations. Okay. Let's study these models one at a time. Before we get inside, let's see if I have any more in the running notes. 4 types of requirement modeling, which are very important, are the ones which are in bold, the scenario-based and the flow model. Okay. So what is a scenario-based model? Let's get started with a scenario-based modeling. Use cases and user stories. This is a method when systems are being built with requirements vaguely known. See, the requirements of the system are not so clearly known. See, Walmart mobile app is an easy solution. We understand what it is. We already know everybody might be using Walmart, so we know what it is. But you might be building some systems which are very new, or we don't have a complete requirement. So it's vaguely known. It's not clear. So at that point in time, you might have to create some use cases or user stories. These both fall under scenario-based models. Let's start with a use case. So what is a use case? Use case is list of steps typically defining an interaction between a role and a system to achieve a goal. The actor here can be a human, an external system, or a time. So use case is represented with a sequence of simple steps beginning with the user goal and ending with the goal fulfilled. See, every system there is a user, right? The user is nothing but an actor. Now, for a system, like say I'm opening a Bank of America, when I open www.bankofamerica.com, what exactly is happening? So there is a customer accessing the bankofamerica.com. There is a bank which is talking to this application, which gives the information about the customer, right? In a similar manner, this application or a system might be talking to various other systems. So now each of it is an actor. Okay, there is maybe a regulatory system the bank has to follow, a compliance system the bank has to follow. So all of these are actors. Now this is a system. And this actor, what is that this actor wants to achieve out of a system? What is this actor wants to achieve out of a system? What does this actor wants to achieve out of a system? What does this guy wants to achieve? So now what is the use case? You first identify the actors in a system. First, what is your system? You're talking about, okay, Bank of America or a Walmart or a health insurance system or a travel system, whatever is your application system you're trying to build. Now, who are all the actors inside it? Now, what are all the various use cases? Use cases are your functions. What is that you're trying to achieve? Now, functions are, okay, let's list it down. Let's take one example. Any idea, anybody wants to talk about a specific system? Anyone have any idea about what system they wanted to talk about? Application system. Any idea? Any system, let's pick it up as an example. Any thoughts from anyone? Okay. A healthcare Kavita for what? Like for a patient to register to take up a plan, or how do you want? See, healthcare is a domain, right? Like Kavita, so system enrolling for an insurance. Okay, all right. So there is an insurance company, so insurance system. Okay. So this is our application system. Now, who are all the actors? Actors are users. Who are all the users for this system? Who all would be using this software? See, let's take a simple software like Aetna. Okay, assume like I was using Aetna, so I keep going to this. Okay, so who all are the actors for Aetna? So enroll insurance. Okay, insurance company. Okay, insurance company in this case. Let's assume this we are talking about Aetna. It's again an insurance system. Okay, insurance company, employees, customers. Here customers are nothing but patients, right? Or individuals. Let's not take a patient, individuals. Okay. Insurance companies are nothing but your providers who is providing us the thing. Okay, pharmacists. Okay. Customers, individual patients, these are all the same guys. Okay. Physicians, yes, those are separate. Okay. And you also have insurance company employees. Here, when I'm talking about employees, these are insurance company employees. Okay. Insurance guys. All right. Pharmacists, physicians. All right. So maybe, yeah, physicians, specialists, primary care, secondary care. That's fine. All right. Anybody is a physician. Okay. You have these many actors. Now, what are all the various functions or features of this particular system? These are nothing but your use cases. What are the various things? Say, let's take a patient. This is a simple guy. Let's take what are the various things a customer or an individual or a patient guy can do with this particular system. What does a patient can do with an? First, he has to enroll. Okay, log in. Enroll is like, okay, enrolling for a particular plan, right? Enrolling for a plan. Okay, then log in. Yeah, what all can be done by the customer guy. So we are writing individual use cases for every actor. For this particular actor, these are all the use cases. What all the patient guy can do? Enroll for a plan, log in. What else can we do? Okay. Summary or plan view, the plan benefits. Okay. Yeah, summary benefits. Yeah, this everything comes under the same balances. Claims. Claims is a different function. Yep, file a claim. That's it. Yep. Find service providers within the radar. Yeah, this here it comes here, right? Like find and in network, outside network, outside network. Yeah, interaction with the customer care service. That's a different thing. Sorry, what do you mean by equipment, Kavita? Yeah, claims, yes. Can you elaborate on equipments, Kavita? What do you mean by that? Okay.
Like some kind of products which is covered by the insurance company, let's say like a knee band, which is covered by the insurance plan, or certain products like a pump or asthma inhalers, the insurance pays. Some equipments they are covered by insurance.
Means you can buy those equipment and that insurance can cover those, is it? Like a wheelchair or a kneecap or something like that? I mean, is that right?
Right. Yeah. So some insurance companies, if you have a premium plan, they do cover equipment. So that's what I
All
mean.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Set up direct deposit. Okay. So we'll leave it here. Next, let's say, for example, what does an insurance provider does? What are the various things an insurance provider could have? What does this guy would do? Enroll customers, suggest plans, various plans. Let's assume like a bronze plan, silver plan, a gold plan, and a platinum. There are 4 plans, say assume. Okay, managing the customers. Claims, reimbursement, denial, claim denial. Yeah, so that goes in the reimbursement or a denial. Anything else the provider guy would do? Okay, physician's records, all right. Okay, so in this manner, so what we are trying to do, for every actor, what is this system is giving the features. So you can list it down and so on. Now, let's take one use case example. One use case is, let's take a customer or a patient enrolling for a plan. Patient is a new guy, is trying to enroll for a plan. Enroll for a plan. So now, what does the definition says? Definition says use case is a list of steps typically defining interaction between a role, who is an actor, and a system to achieve a goal. Okay, patient enroll for a plan. What is the goal? So as patient is covered under insurance. So in here, this is your actor. This is the goal of, sorry, this is your actor. This is the goal of the actor, what he's trying to do, right? So what is he trying to play? This is the action he's trying to perform. Your actor is trying to perform this function to achieve this goal. Now, what are the steps involved? Use case tells you the steps involved for an interactions. Now, what are the steps? Okay, patient logs in or opens up the insurance page, be it on a web or a mobile. Okay, then he clicks on enroll, then chooses a plan. He has to furnish his details first. Furnish details. You just add it in the same step and choose a plan. On successful validation, because every insurance company might not give the plan whatever I choose. Maybe Shri wants to choose a gold plan. Maybe the insurance company might say, hey Shri, you're not eligible for gold, you can take only silver or something. Okay, on successful validation, plan is enrolled, and get a communication on email or mobile, something like that. Anything I missed out in this one, guys? Any step we need to add? Anything we missed out? I have to set up the bank details, right? Set up. Yeah, this would come before actually. Excuse me. Bank account details, because that is where my first premium would be collected out, right? Set up bank payment. Yeah, furnished details, it goes in there, Sharda. Like, okay, add your members for the plan. It goes in here. Okay, you can add it as a step as well. I just made it very generic when you're furnishing details. All right. So at every step, whatever the patient guy is performing, the system will respond, right? So what happens when patient is trying to opening the page? How does your system respond? System responds, opens up home page, right, of the insurance. Click on enroll. So what happens? Say enrollment page opens up. Your system is responding to the action performed by a patient. Furnish the details and choose a plan. Okay. Enrollment page opens up. Plan options are displayed based on eligibility. Excuse me. So various plans can be chosen, right? Like, I mean, so let's keep this step separately. Okay. So based on user furnishing the details, various plans could be shown up based on the eligibility. And in the step 4, you would choose the plan. Say if I have to pay for a gold, I may have to pay $300 per month. If it is a silver, maybe 200 or something like that. So I'll choose a plan. So plan verified, selected. Okay, set up the bank details. Bank details has to be authorized. Because I cannot just give a dummy bank details, right? So it has to be valid, and that will be validated by the system, insurance system. Okay, in your step 6, unsuccessful validation. Okay, this is your 5, this is your 6. This is your 7. Non-successful validation, plan is enrolled, so you'll get a success enrollment message or something like that. Get communication on email or mobile. So you'll get the notification sent with the details, login, and so on, right? Like all the information about the plan, etc. Plan ID, yes, plan ID, policy ID, that's true. So this is your use case. So what is the use case? Steps typically determining the interactions between a role and a system, achieving a goal. So why are you separating it? Why are you defining it like this? So when I define it in this manner, so everybody, be it your business guys, be it your technology guys, IT guys, everybody understands, right? What are the various steps? How does it look like? What should be there on this page? What are the options? What is the eligibility? What are the rules? How do you identify what plan they can allow? What is the validation? What error should show if the authorization fails? What plans can be displayed for what members? What is the criteria? How is the communication sent? What all information? What is the content? So much of requirements will come, right? You do the model so as it gives some good information about how are the various activities, how does it come up, right? It helps you to establish the cost and complexity of the system. See, this use case has so many things which has to be detailed up. What message, what is the content, what is the criteria? So many questions popped up for as you as a BA itself, you have so many questions. You can pose those questions to your BA, to your stakeholders. So what all we should include in a use case? Who is using the system? What does the user want? What is the goal of the user? What are the steps involved? You don't want to include any implementation language. You don't want to talk about interfaces or screens. I don't need to say click on here, go here. If there is a yes, if there is a no, you don't need to go that detail. Use cases, you're just talking about the functionality. Actor. What is the definition of an actor? Any person, an organization, or a company. It could be a hardware or software also. See, if your web application is interacting with a smart TV, right? You might be connecting your mobile to a smart TV, or you might be connecting your mobile to a printer. That could become an actor too, because that hardware is printing out something for you. Actors, every actor is a stakeholder, but not all stakeholders could be an actor, right? See, we have a non-office guy, we have an IT guy, we have somebody who is legal, an employee union. So those guys might not be an actors. Actors, every actor could be a stakeholder. Now I identify so many use cases, so many functions that can be performed by each and every role. I can depict that in a use case diagram. So how do you draw this diagram? When you draw this use case diagram or a use case model, we use the UML modeling notation, unified modeling language. That's a notation in a software industry to provide a standard way of visualizing. I cannot just draw a circle, a square box, a rounded rectangle, a triangle, and so on. I have to follow the notations given by UML. So how does this use case diagram will have? Use case diagram will have a boundary. Boundary defines the system, right? The scope. What is the scope of your system? The interest. There is so much outside it. Some are manual, some are automated. I don't care. But the boundary tells me this is what you are interested in. Actors. What are all the various actors? So many use cases. Use cases are your functions you're trying to perform by the act. And the relationship between the actors and a use case. How does an actor perform a particular use case? That's your relationship. A use case diagram will have these 4 components. So this is one example of a use case diagram for a restaurant management system. You can see these actors, this rectangle, you can see here, this big rectangle, this is your boundary of your system. And these are all your actors, a waiter guy, a client guy, a cashier, and a chef. All these bubbles are your use cases. Ordering food is a generic use case, right? In performing and ordering food, there could be various steps like these. These are your various steps. The goal for the client is to order a food. To perform this particular actor, to perform this use case, what he has to do, he has to place an order. While ordering a food, he has an optionality. That optional is represented as an extension. While ordering food, he can also order a wine. Okay, these are the use cases for a client. One more use case for a client is he will eat the food. One more use case for a client is pay for the food. These are the 3 use cases for the client. When he eats the food, he will also drink the wine. That's an optional extension, extend. While paying for the food, he can also pay for the wine. That's all. Pay for the wine. That's also one more extension. Now, what are the use cases for a waiter guy? Serve food. He can also has to provide a bill. So he has to facilitate a payment. Now, what are the use cases for a chef guy? A cooking of a food, he has to confirm the order. While the waiter is serving the food, he will also serve the wine. That's an extension. So this is how you're representing various use cases for the actors in a use case diagram. So then how will I draw this diagram? See these models, right? We're talking about various models like use case model or a DFD model or an activity diagram. You can draw these models using a Word document. You can just use some of the shapes and you can draw it. Or if your organization culture says you have to follow a Visio, you can use a Microsoft Visio to draw these diagrams. There are various tools available to draw UML diagrams. So many online tools are available, so many tools you can purchase as well. Various tools. Visio is one popular one, Start UML, Concept Draw. Visio is a tool. It's a tool from Microsoft which is used to draw these models in a similar manner. Concept Draw, Start UML, some of them. No, it's a Microsoft one, right? It's a licensed version. You can get a trial version for 30 days for your practice purpose. Or you can use some online tools like Draw.io. Even Draw.io is a popularly used online tool. You can use these tools. You can choose what is the diagram you're drawing. Visio is a popular one, popularly used, Microsoft Visio. And the other ones which I said just now, right? Like Start UML is also popular. Concept Draw. IDRA I'm not available. I'm not aware of. I heard about Concept Draw and Start UML. So Visio is the one I worked on. Okay. Alright. So you can draw this model, or as I said, as simple as if the company is not using any tools. Maybe they're not buying these tools. They said like, okay, hey Shri, you draw it using a Word or MS Paint. That's also possible. Okay, you can draw it. Now these use case diagrams. What is the use case diagram? Definition is UML notation for showing the relationship among the use cases and an actors. That's what we understand from this. Different use cases and an actors. How is the relationship? This is one more example. These are the actors. Supplier is one actor, library user, library staff. So this is a use case diagram for a library system. These are the various bubbles which tells you the various use cases. Article search is one use case, article printing, user administration. Library staff is also doing a user administration. He will also do a catalog service. That's the supplier for the library system who adds it into the catalog service. So how do you draw the use case diagrams? The first thing is identify actors, like how we did, right? We identified all the actors for a particular system. Then define the use cases. What are the various use cases or functions every actor guy can do? Discover anything reusable. Some use cases could be commonly used across multiple actors, like customer and provider is using one use case, like a claim submission or a viewing of a benefits or so on. Put them in an ID, give the name and so on. Write down the basic description and define the description of the use case, basic flow and alternate flow. Let's say for example, this is a use case diagram for an auction site. There is a buyer guy who performs creation of an account on the auction site. This buyer guy will list items on the auction site, searches for the items which are already listed on the auction site. This buyer will place a bid. If he is successful on his bid, he will purchase the item. Now, what does the seller guy will do? He will also create his own seller account. He will search the listings already available on the item he's trying to auction it. He creates an auction. He sets up the time for the bid. Finally, whoever is the lowest bid, he will ship that item to that person. So there are two actors. Two actors are performing 4 use cases across. Now, when I'm drawing this use case diagram, the second step, first to identify actors, define use cases. These 2 steps are done. Now comes the third step wherein I have to identify the reusable use cases. Inside this diagram, what are the reusable use cases, guys? Anyone? out of these use case, in this diagram itself, there are, yeah, create account, that's common. Search items, right? Even that's also common. So this is how the diagram should look like. There is a generic user is one guy. That user could become a buyer or the user could become a seller. So this user creates an account, searches. So these are the two use cases which are common to any user. Now, if this user becomes a buyer, he can place a bid, purchases the item. If this user becomes a seller, he would create an auction, ships the item. So these are extensions. Extensions, as I say, there are two things for an extension. One is an exceptional scenario or an error scenario, or the other thing is optional. This user could become a seller guy or a buyer guy. So that's why it is an extension. Extension is represented with an arrow pointing towards the user. So out of the steps, I define the actors, identify the use cases. Define the use cases, identify any reusable use cases, then add the item, like a tabular format. The same use cases, how we written down like this, you would write it down in a tabular format, give an ID to everything, use cases, who is the primary actor, what is the scope, what is the complexity, some are medium complex, some are high complex, what is the priority of each use case. So this gives you the use case index. Now, what is my last step? I define a table with the use cases. I need to write down the brief description, basic flow, and alternate flow. So something like this. For every use case, you give an ID, application, what is using, the name, the description, the primary actor, precondition, trigger, basic flow, alternate flow. So let's write it down. Okay. For the same use case of patient enroll, what is the things? The first one is use case number. So give a use case number. Okay, I'll call it as number 1. What is the application you're talking about? Okay, this is an insurance application. Excuse me. Okay, define the actual application, guys. Okay, if it is 8na, give it as 8na.com or something like that. Use case name. What is this use case called? Okay, this is for patient enrollment, or give a name to it. Okay, patient enrollment, something like that. Okay, description of the use case. What is this use case about? Okay, this is the use case. You give it the description. You can add some more details. Give that. Actor. Who is the primary guy? You're not talking about every actor. Who is the primary guy? Here the primary guy is a patient or an individual or a customer, whoever is it. Then preconditions. Preconditions tells me what preconditions must be met before this use case can start and what event triggers. What is the precondition for this one, guys? Precondition is what preconditions must be met before this use case can start. You already written this use case. What do you guys think is the precondition? What preconditions must be met before this use case can start? Okay, there is a need to buy a policy. Precondition is customer, or patient. Excuse me. Opens insurance application. Okay. All right. What is the trigger? What event triggers this use case? That's the need, right? Need to buy the policy. That's the trigger. Okay. If there is no trigger, you can ignore it. I'm just giving an example. Basic flow. What does a basic flow mean? Basic flow should be the events of the use case when everything is perfect. There are no errors, no exceptions. This is a happy day scenario. Any exceptions will be handled in alternate flow. This all is your basic flow. customer is able to successfully enroll for an appointment or enroll for the plan. Patient successful in enrollment. See, you have to give all the steps, guys. Okay, this is a generic example. You have to mention all these steps here. Okay, that's your basic thing. Whatever steps we written here, it has to be there. What are the events? The basic flow should be the events of the use case. How do you do that? All those steps come here. What are alternate flows? What all could go wrong in enrollment? What do you guys think? Okay. Payment problem, invalid account information, mandatory fields missing. Okay. Anything else? Not able to add members. Maybe patient already enrolled to another plan. Yep, confirmation mail not received. Yep, confirmation mail not received, authentication not successful. Eligibility not met. See, customer is trying to do, but he doesn't have any eligibility to enroll for either of the plans. That is also possible, right? Eligibility not met. Maybe that insurance company is looking for a basic pay and is not able to do. Downtime. Yep. Take errors. Yep. So these are all your alternate flows. That is how you detail out your use case. So this is an example. Let's see it. Say the use case name is buyer places a bid. What is the description? An eBay buyer has identified an item they wish to buy, so they place a bid for an item with the intent of winning the auction and paying for the item. Now, what is the basic flow? Happy day scenario. For a consumer to place a successful bid, what is the primary flow when everything goes as planned? Everything goes as planned. Now, what is an alternate flow? Credit card fail, user session time solved. These are all the various errors. Extensions, that's what I was explaining, right? Extensions are optionals, or it could be for exceptional cases. It could be for both you use an extension, including handling an unusual scenario. You also have generalization. Generalization we already talked about, right? A generic user, he could become a buyer, he could become a seller. That's your generalization. You are generalizing the user, superclass. Inclusions are commonality, like you have to do it, like okay, some things which are common, like let's say for example I have to log in. The common thing is I have to furnish my username, password, or give my fingerprint or something, right? Like that's your common things. Let's see one use case which has generalization, extension, and inclusion. There is an ordinary user. This guy is an extension. A system administrator is an extension to an ordinary user. Ordinary user could be a system administrator. Is an extension to ordinary user. This is your extension. Here, this comes your extension. This is your general user. Now, this guy wants to open a file. Let's say use case. Opening a file, there are two sub use cases, two more use cases inside it. You can open a file by typing in the name. You can open a file by browsing it. When I'm typing in the name, there could be an error scenario. I type in a name, the file does not exist. That's why exceptions or error scenarios, you handle it using extensions. Inclusion. To open a file by browsing, obviously I have to browse the file. This is how you do an inclusion. That's about use cases. I'll pause for a minute. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Scenario based model. This is your first model. Okay. In our next class, we'll study how to use the Visio tool to draw these use case diagram models. Okay. So any questions, guys? So we talked about all of these use case diagrams, conventions, unified modeling language. Also, we seen it last time. So modeling language in a software engineering principle to provide the visual way of a design of your system. Various models that are possibly drawn using a UML diagram. So this is where we are talking about use case diagram. These are the ones which are important to us: activity diagram, use case diagram. Definitely no need to go for this. Most of these are very technical. You don't need to talk about these much. They're less important. Okay? Sequence and state. Okay. What is the use case? Is a pictorial representation of a data. As I said, you can use various tools, Microsoft Visio. These are all licensed tools. Some online tools like Draw.io can also be used. Okay, we'll talk about some more examples maybe tomorrow. It's already time. I'll pause here. We'll talk about it more. Any questions, guys, before we wind up for today? Can I get an email of that notepad that you? Yeah, sure. You will get everything as a part of the Hightail link. Okay. You would receive an email from Madhu with the recorded video along with the attachments. So in that, you'll have this class notes also. Okay. No problem. Any other questions, guys, before we wind up? All right. There are no questions. Have a great night, guys. Take care. Be safe. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.